Okay, so this will be the video for plants as medicines. Again, you can just follow along with the regular PowerPoint if you'd like. I also have a PDF of the PowerPoint that has some of the same talking points I'm going to have here just in little text boxes. So it's kind of up to you how you want to follow along with these. Most plants don't make medicines for us. They are defensive compounds. They happen to have medicinal usage. They sometimes can be artificially synthesized, at least nowadays, but the plants make them because they're trying to prevent people and animals and insects from eating them. So we know there's all of these things are stimulants, right? Tea has caffeine, coffee has caffeine, chocolate has the caffeine, and colas and energy drinks. Those are technically stimulants. They're not necessarily a medicine per se, but certainly they have effects and impacts on the human body. Tea is one of those things that's still hand-picked, and then it has to be processed. I'm not going to ask you to memorize which type of tea is most or least processed. Just be aware as you're looking at this list that there are differences in the processing of different types of tea, and that results in different colors and different chemicals and different tastes, obviously. So if you look at the top picture, that is tea being harvested by hand. The lower left is close-up pictures of actual tea leaves, and the lower right is just some different processing and the different colors of tea that result from that processing. Coffee. Imagine some of you probably are coffee drinkers. I personally do not drink coffee, but it's not like I don't have caffeine. It's in a lot of things. I am known to drink Diet Coke instead of coffee. Right, this is another one that's pretty much harvested by hand. We are seeing more monoculture of coffee. We are seeing issues with the monoculture of coffee because of disease issues. Obviously, a big one. Anytime you monoculture anything, you're possibly looking at habitat destruction. And as more and more people drink coffee, and as we need more and more types of coffee to overcome some of the disease issues, that's becoming a bigger issue. So here's a coffee plantation over on the left, and you see typical coffee beans over on the right. This is how they're grown on a farm. This happens to be in India. Interesting, one of the big problems that they were having with coffee is people would go out and harvest their coffee beans, and tigers would eat them. They came up with a real simple solution for this, and that was they just put paper masks with open eyes on the backs of everybody's heads because the tigers thought then that they were being stared at. So, kind of a low-tech solution to what was a very serious problem for coffee farmers. Chocolate, there's the plant, the Theobroma cacao. It is a tropical American plant. It never was consumed originally as a sweet beverage a sweetener like we do now. Chocolate is very sweet. It was very bitter. They didn't add sugars or anything to it. If you look at before the 1800s, it is a fairly complex process to make chocolate, to go from the chocolate plant to chocolate itself. Again, you don't necessarily need to know those sorts of things. Just be aware that this is yet another plant that we utilize as a stimulant. It is an alkaloid, and cats and dogs can't metabolize it. Most of us probably know that nowadays. What you want to look at, though, is serotonin, which is kind of one of the happy hormones. There is some research that shows that chocolate does increase the levels of serotonin in your body, which is why people feel happy after eating it, particularly the dark chocolates. I took this picture at the National Botanic Garden, and so that is the seeds of chocolate growing along a chocolate tree. The yellow ones are close to being ripe, and the green ones are not ripe. So this is not a plant that's easily harvested. It's still harvested by hand because they all ripen at different times. The cola tree, Kola, is what we use for Coca-Cola. So you can see the genus name, the scientific name is Cola, cola. It's a West African plant, and this is the plant that we originally used to make Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola also originally contained cocaine because at the time everybody thought it was healthy. Nowadays, obviously, we don't have that, but the caffeine still comes from the cola nuts, and that is what a cola nut looks like. So it's a funky, kind of unusual little plant. We don't tend to think of alcohol as a depressant, but technically it is. You drink enough alcohol, and obviously you get impacts on the human body. You drink enough, eventually your body's going to go, yep, we're sleeping now. And I'm not going to ask you to know which plants make which alcohols or things like that. But obviously, we can think of beneficial effects of alcohol. As it a little bit can kind of make you happy. Also, there are harmful effects. You can get alcoholism, liver problems, and all kinds of things like that. So that's kind of up to you to how you look at both beneficial and harmful effects with alcohol. Again, here's a list of things. I'm not going to ask you to look at what plants make what type of alcohol. Just be aware that just about any plant we can ferment and turn into some sort of alcohol. Here's a modern processing plant. And here is an old-fashioned way of making it. This happens to be making mezcal, which is, some people call it type of tequila. It's technically not, but they're using the roots of agave to make mezcal, and this is kind of an old way of processing that. Nowadays, we have lots of conversations, particularly about marijuana, but we'll talk a little bit briefly about tobacco, opium, poppy, and peyote, because these are things that impact us in vastly different ways. And here's a tobacco farm, and again, you can kind of see, pros and cons for tobacco and the impacts that tobacco has, both as on the farming industry and from the human side of things. As marijuana gets legalized for various reasons, hemp and paper and clothing and medicinal and recreational uses, we're going to see a lot of changes to the greenhouse industry. We're going to probably see a lot of changes to farming, and we're going to see a lot of different cultivars show up as people get different cultivars of cannabis for different uses. This is an opium poppy. Opium poppy is a great flower. It's a beautiful ornamental. I'll show you a picture in a second. That white stuff, that's the stuff that people harvest to make opioids with it. And there it is growing naturally at Kingwood in Mansfield. So it's a beautiful annual. It's not going to cause any problems or harm in your garden unless you're going around and processing the sap into opium or opiates. This is peyote. Excuse me. This is peyote. Peyote looks like basically just like rocks in the desert. It's not a very common plant. It's really only allowed as a psychoactive if you are part of certain native tribes and you're using it in your religious rituals. Otherwise, it's really not something that we see as a psychoactive these days. This list could go on and on and on. Probably most of you know that aloe, used for burns. Foxglove, actually, digitalis, is used for heart attacks. So we could put lots and lots of plants out here that you can find growing in gardens that have medicinal uses one way or the other. So if we look at this, you can see the aloe on the left, used for burns. The pink flowering plant in the middle is periwinkle, and that actually is used to help your blood clot. And on the far right is foxglove, digitalis. Digitalis is actually a deadly poison. But if your heart is running rampant and you're having a heart attack and your heart is beating irregularly, they can give you an extract made from foxglove, and it will actually stop your heart, allowing doctors, to get your heart going at a regular rhythm again. So it is something that's used to treat heart attacks. We're finding new uses all the time. I believe we've talked about kudzu helping treat for alcoholism. Galanthus, there's a little flower on the left, a little white flower. Turns out has possibly some uses for Alzheimer's disease. Just within the last couple of years, we have the yellow flower in the center. Cytisus helps people stop smoking. So we're constantly discovering plants have properties and chemicals that could be medicinal. It's one of the reasons that people are talking about plant extinction so much, and that is because it's a possibility that these plants that are going extinct had some chemical in them that could have been useful to us. Some plants are not the direct source of chemical. Some of them are a precursor. Taxol is a cancer-fighting agent. Taxus, that's the plant on the left-hand side, has been sheared into a little dog. You might see those all around in your landscape. It's a pretty common landscape plant. Taxus actually can be utilized as a cancer-fighting agent because Taxus, the chemical Taxol, is a biocide, so killing life. But that means then that we can target cancer cells with it. And shikimic acid from star anise, which is the plant on the right, is a precursor for Tamiflu, which is an antiviral medicine. So the whole point in all of this is to notice that we use a lot of different plants for a lot of different medicines, and it's entirely possible that there's a whole bunch of medicines available in plants out there that we haven't even discovered yet. As always, if you've got any questions, don't forget, to hit me up somewhere, either on Carmen, any social media, or you can simply send me a text. All right, bye-bye.